All right, so Baylor's won 4 games in a row. And so I'm not an X's and O's analyst. I'm not anything like that in any way, shape, or form. But what I did was I put together a list of what I thought, or at least what I've seen, of what they're doing better. And, Paul, did you put this up on a
We
slide?
have several graphics,
Okay,
yes.
all
So starting with Sydney Fugar on down, or whatever order Garrett
So
has
what
it.
I did is I put together a list of why and what I've seen from Baylor from my perspective. And I'm not one that usually pops off about what I've seen. But one of the things that I've seen is that says Trigg.
Where do you want to start?
Okay, I'll go with that. Michael Trigg is a security blanket for Sawyer Robertson. The catch he made at the end of the game at home that allowed them to win the game at the last home game on, what was it, 4th and 7, 8, 9, or whatever it was.
4th and 9 against TCU.
Against TCU. He's not just a player that makes that play, but he also can bring some leverage in the pass protection and blocking. But Michael Trigg's transfer has given them something that is, they're starting to understand how to use him better.
Brett Norsworthy, who covers Ole Miss, and he's on radio in Memphis, and he's covered Ole Miss for a very, very long time. He told me before the year, he goes, "You're going to like Michael Trigg, and I hope it works out for him." In early part of the year, it was just kind of, they couldn't. I mean, they were just so out of sync offensively. He made one catch in a game early on. I thought, oh, dang. I mean, this guy's an athlete. But now, I mean, he's paying off in all kind of ways.
And I also wondered about the fact when he and Linton didn't play one game. Because they
both of them since that little incident have played really well.
All right, Garrett, go to the next one. Josh Cameron. Baylor has had for the last couple of years, 2021, Tyquan Thornton was the guy that picked up the mantle for wide receivers, and they had R.J. Sneed and a few others as well. But they were struggling finding somebody to make the 50-50 catch. And not only that, but make the catch and also yards after catch or contact. Josh Cameron started doing that. Great punt returner, too. We know that. And it seemed like after he started to have yards after catch or contact and making 50-50 plays on throws from Sawyer Robertson, the rest of the wide receivers started doing the same thing. That doesn't mean that Ashton Hawkins had not made some big plays or others like Presley, etc., but it seemed like that was another part of what they've done during this winning streak.
I think a lot of times people try to overcomplicate things, and I understand that sometimes teams aren't good because of the coaching, but I felt like with Baylor all along, it was a question about their talent level, and if they have talent, then, and they clearly do, but if they had talent, then the talent actually needs to, show that they're talented and put that talent out on display, and I don't feel like they were doing that early on. I feel like they were playing scared, or they weren't making the tough plays, maybe just didn't know what they were doing, but they've suddenly had guys go out and make the tough catch, whereas Michael Trigg, early part of the year, he drops the 4th down. Like, he drops the 4th down versus TCU. TCU gets the ball, they kick a field goal, and they win the game. Like, that would be the first month of the season Baylor. But now guys are making the catch. In the case of Josh Cameron's touchdown on Saturday, making a catch and then using his acceleration and making a play after the fact. I mean, early in the season, maybe he does catch the ball, but then he gets dragged down like a yard later. I mean, they're just making – it's really simple. I don't know how many games, probably like a handful of games I heard this weekend where the announcers finally just like – you say, well, you want to about coaching and this and that and scheme and everything. But players, this is a game where the players have to make plays.
Yep.
Like that, it's that simple. It's the Jimmies and the Joes, right? That's what it's always been about. That's why the recruiting rankings are so important. That's why you do everything in your willpower to get whatever talent you can. So, yeah, it boils down to talent, but talent then has to show that. And I questioned both at the beginning of the year because it was pretty unclear how talented they actually were. They clearly have a lot of talent, but it's only become clear because that talent has stepped up and shown that off, and guys like Josh Cameron have led the way in doing so.
Well, he has, and you know what, that throw that he made, a catch he made at the sideline, and then he kind of backed off a little bit. It was almost as if he was returning a punt, getting himself set to return a punt with people coming down in coverage. What do we have next, Garrett? Sawyer Robertson. I mentioned more experience, more confidence, and a swagger. A coach on staff said to me that football team would run through a wall for him. It's not just the fact he's got a hell of an arm. Remember, Mike Leach recruited him to be a quarterback at Mississippi State. That's enough right there. But we didn't really see a lot of that. We didn't see enough of it, and he didn't get enough opportunities either. And sometimes that may have been on him too. But he has what Coach says to me, they would run through a wall for Sawyer Robertson. They love the guy as a competitor.
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, I think you could tell based on how they interact in the post games, and he's played really well. I think the biggest thing for Sawyer is he's not turning the ball over. That's the biggest thing. Don't turn the ball over, and usually good things happen. So he's held on to the football, and even had a couple interceptions there early in the year. You kind of wondered if that was just going to be an every week thing of a throw gets away from him or his confidence gets the best of him. But he's even tampered down on that and is not turning it over at all. And that goes hand in hand with success. Not to mention that his offensive line is remarkably better from the last couple of years, and they are protecting him. He's not getting sacked or pressured all that much. And then you also have a run game that's therefore opened up and takes some of the pressure off his shoulders to not have to make every play known to man. And then when he does have to make a play, he's athletic enough to be able to run it short yardage, but also his receivers are, again, making plays and making the catch or making the run after the catch and turning regular catches into scores. So it's just a combination of things, but it all starts with him and his leadership and his playmaking ability and his confidence, and it's spread throughout the team, and it's pretty clear that he's the guy, and it just makes you wonder of, what all came into play in the preseason with DeQuan Finn. Obviously, DeQuan Finn was a big investment. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, whatever it ended up being. So we know that. But what was going on in practice where he didn't separate? Because you look at him now, you're like, damn, DeQuan Finn must have been a bad mofo if he was getting the nod over Sawyer Robertson based on what we've seen. So, yeah, whatever happened, it worked out in the long run, and Sawyer's the guy, and it's pretty clear he's the guy.
He didn't have immediate success, but one of the things that Phil Bennett even mentioned a long time ago to us was that it makes you wonder why he wasn't starting in week one. We're not at practice. We're not at the camp workouts or scrimmages very often at all. And so your coaches make decisions, and then they, of course, can react to that too.
Look, like I told Jack earlier, look, DeQuan Finn was just a very expensive NIL deal to motivate Sawyer Robertson.
I mean, you could look at it that way.
That's what it's turned out to be.
That wasn't
right
their
now.
plan because
No.
that would be some evil mastermind type level plan, but that is the way that it's certainly started to look if you wanted to try to paint that angle.
All right, here's another one. All right, what do we have, Garrett? Bryson Washington. He wasn't healthy at the early part of the year, didn't get a lot of reps. There's a couple of times he couldn't go. He's now healthy. This dude is an alpha. He was, like a lot of players in college, an unbelievable running back at Franklin High School. But he now has the ability to run with power, and they have others who do that, like Dawson Pendergrass and others, but he can run with power. He also has the ability to all of a sudden just go matrix fluid between a bunch of big bodies. You saw the catch he made that was spectacular in traffic. He's the alpha. Keenan Hall told me back in August, if they can get him to the point where he's able to play, that he is a difference maker. That doesn't mean others in the running back room weren't, but he's a difference maker. He has given them the chance now where offensive linemen, they all feel like they can make anything happen in the run game that was stagnant, remember, for almost 2 full years.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much difference one guy can make just stylistically because not too many other things had really changed, but when he got the ball early in the year versus others, good things seemed to happen, and for everybody else, for the most part, they just kind of ran into a wall over and over again. But you had heard the same thing about needing to get him healthy and what a big difference maker he would be, but couldn't have imagined just how true those words have rang, and he's been much better than I ever anticipated. Dawson Pendergrass is a nice number 2 in that room, nice complimentary back. Richard Reese just isn't a fit for, he's not getting the same out of his carries. And then Dominic Richardson, we know, dealt with injuries and he's obviously moved on. But Pendergrass but especially Washington have become a really nice 1-2 punch. And curious to see kind of how that evolves in the coming months with the young guys coming in and just what they do with the running back room. But if you can hold on to Washington, that's one of your anchors, clearly. It's him, it's Sawyer Robertson, and then Josh Cameron, maybe whoever else you'd want to throw in there, but Washington's been a revelation for sure, and he's got an opportunity at 1,000 yards, which is pretty crazy given how the season started off with.
8 touchdowns in 2 games, and the part of it is not just all run game or whatever, but he made the catch early on that was so impressive. And then none of this happens without this too, the offensive line. South Carolina transfer Sidney Fugar, 6'5", 341, was a part of the left guard rotation. They moved him during the BYU game to left tackle. He didn't start there, but he started the next week against Iowa State. He, for whatever reason, this right here led to everything else with Lengel or with Barrington, among others. It all just fit. It all just meshed. And since that time, how about these stats? Since that time, since Fugar's 5 starts, Baylor's averaging nearly 500 yards a game, a 50-50 split almost in offense with 265 passing, Paul, 223 a game rushing.
Yeah.
They couldn't run out of their own shadow for a while.
No, they couldn't. And it's weird to me that you just have this guy even playing at guard in a rotation, which also, one of the things I'll tell you right now, if you hear your coach go, we have 8 guys we feel like we can rotate into the offensive line, unless that guy's Kirby Smart in 2022, he's lying, and or he's just trying to convince himself of something. Offensive line rotations don't work like wide receivers and running backs. It's not. Offensive line and quarterback needs to be the same 6 dudes. The 1 quarterback, the 5 offensive linemen, don't mess with it. And since Baylor's been doing that, look what they've been doing. Knocking people's D in the dirt.
You can have depth, but you need to know who they are. By the way, another stat, Baylor is now 28th in the country in fewest sacks allowed and 7th in the country in fewest tackles for losses allowed. And this has happened over the last 4 to 5 games, which also has led to a 4-game winning streak. I had a note from somebody that contacted me that understands the offensive line play. We'll wrap it up with this and get to our guest, Mark, in just a second. He's a transfer. So when does he get to work out with the team? When he entered the transfer portal, you cannot work out with where you are when you enter the transfer portal. So it has taken a while for a man that big, 6'5", 341, to be able to get himself not only in shape for camp or during camp, but shape to be a part of in shape to play in a game, and in shape to play in multiple games in multiple minutes, longer minutes than you had when you probably first got your few reps early in the season. That has been a huge part of what has led to this run. Everybody seems to be stepping up, and it took a while. Mason Miller, very patient with the offensive line. Remember that story I told you about after a scrimmage? I was walking through the tunnel to walk out of the stadium, and he was sitting there on the steps like this. And I said, tough day. It's just going to take some time. And now here they are with what they have. Doesn't mean that they'll beat Houston, who's got a really nice and highly ranked defense coming up on Saturday night.